Hey there everybody, welcome to my Scratch tutorial episode 2. So, in our last episode, we went over all the motion blocks, alright? We went over the basics to Scratch, including direction, X and Y position, and yeah, how to move all that, and manipulate these different functions. And so in today's episode, what we are going to do is get into the looks blocks on Scratch. So there's a lot of different things to go from and choose and use. So we are going to get into all of those. So starting with say and think. Alright, so here we are, and we have our fresh sprite, okay? So let's get a little warm up on our motion. So right now we are going to just create a script that will allow us to firstly spawn here, and then we are going to, actually no, you know what? We are going to have it go to a random position. So each episode we are going to get further in to this thing, and we are going to work towards a game. So right now we have our first function that will right now just send us to a random position. So that will be our thing from last episode. And now we are going to get into looks. So first off, we have the say function. So as simple as it sounds, and as it looks, you pretty much just type in what you want it to say and for how long you want it to say it. And so for this, you could do like maybe if you win or something, you could say win for 2 seconds, alright? And I would recommend the longer your text is, the longer amount of time you would take. And I would count how long it takes you to read it at a slower pace. That way everybody gets a chance to read it. And so yeah, so you can do this, and then when flag is clicked, win, yay, for 2 seconds, of course. Or since we're just starting, what you could do is start, yay. Okay, so we have the say for 2 seconds, and now we just have say. I can't say that I commonly use this specifically. This will just repeatedly say hello. It'll say it, and it won't dismiss it until really anything. So I guess this is for if you have like a certain variable, like a true false thing, and you want it to say one thing during one point and then another during another. So that's what you would do this. Same for the think. The only difference here is that it has little bubbles. So for say, it's like a text bubble, and then anything else, it's like a little thoughts bubble. So speech and thoughts. So that's what the think is. Same thing for this here. Next we have switch costume 2. So let me tell you, at the end of this series, we are going to have a walking cat that is animated, and I will teach you how. Well, you just gotta stick along and keep watching the episodes, and then we will get there. And a lot of you probably already know how to do this, but this is mostly a tutorial for beginners. So yeah, we are going to start here. So switch costume 2. What this will do is, so you have your costumes tab right up here. You have your sounds as well, but we will get into that later. So you can now change and create your own sprites. And so that's a big part of this. We're going to start with creating sprites. So to create a sprite, you can go into this little choose a costume. You can search for a costume. Scratch has an entire library of different sprites you can use. Some of them have different animations, and here's how you know if they have multiple sprites to go with them. Because what'll happen is it'll have more than one thing. But if you're in like one of these tabs here, see, normally it used to have it as one sprite, and then you would just hover and it would show all of them. So as you can see, sprites with multiple costumes here are animated. So as you can see, this Scratch cat has this. There's cat flying, which isn't necessarily the same. It's the same cat, but it's not the same sprite. And so you can now change the sprites. And so, yes, here is idle and here is walking. So you got that. So you can choose a costume or a sprite to add, or, oh wait, yes. So here's the reason why it's showing all of these costumes, because you're choosing specific costumes. Now if you go down here to choose a sprite and you select choose a sprite, it'll show only one. And if you hover over that, it's going to show all the different costumes that you can use. But so you can paint, so you can paint your own. So first off, you have this draw function, so you can now draw your own sprite. You have a fill function. This will really only work if there's a solid something. You can fill the inside with your own color. It has to be completely solid, and there has to be like a start and an end connecting. And it still has this outline in there. You have a line, so it'll create a solid line, and these lines aren't straight unless you can perfectly get them to be straight. But there is a simple solution to that, because you now have the square function. So you can draw an outline of a square, or you can disable outlines right here, or change the color of them. But then for fill, we now have this. And so you can now have this, or if you want a straight line, boom, completely straight. This one is more of like a curve edges type thing. I'll show you what this is. Not many people use it, but here's what it does. So we now have our 4 vertices on this square, because every square has 4 vertices. You can add a vertice by clicking somewhere on the edges. So like here. And so now that it has a new vertice, you can now control that, and it will connect to the others. So, do something like this, you have like a little slopey area now. So that's kind of what you can do. So you can add or do all these different things with different vertices. And like if you add 2 and then were to add 1 in the middle, it'll be within those new 2 vertices. So yeah, I think it's a pretty useful function if you're getting into more detailed sprite creating, but not many people use it because they don't use much of that. So I'm going to go and just draw a little something here. And now we have the eraser tool, and what this will do is erase from your sprite, and so, or your costume. I keep mixing the two up, but the difference between a sprite is it contains the costumes and the code, and then the costume is just all the drawing on the inside. Okay, and so now let's say we have this. I can erase from that. Now sometimes if you, let me do this real quick. I'm gonna you cannot, if you are in vector mode, so we'll get to converting between vector and bitmap. If you are in vector mode, which is usually the default when you do this, when you start to draw a sprite, if you import an image and it's in vector mode, you cannot erase from that image because it is just one whole image. Now if you draw something or like do a text, I think that is a different, okay, so you can't do it with text, but you can do it with any drawings or shapes you make. That includes fill and the lines. So of course, yeah, now we have our text. So we have a text. If you will go here back into the selection tool, you can now add an outline to your text. And so what this will do is it'll kind of clear up the font a bit, make it a little more stylish. So the default font is sans serif. You have a couple different fonts to choose from. We got this, handwriting, marker, curly, pixel. Let's see here. I think either Japanese or Chinese, and then Korean is down here. So yeah. Next, after text, we have circle. So Yep, you can do a circle. You can, of course, change its outline. Uh, you can change that. If you can't see an outline, just increase the thickness of the outline, or you can remove it altogether. But maybe you don't want to remove it altogether, so you can just remove the fill, and now you have an outline of a circle. So yes, that comes pretty handy sometimes. Okay, next we have convert to bitmap. So bitmap is like pixel creation, like bit by bit. I'm not going to get too heavily into that, but we still have our drawing. We still, boom, we have circle, we have text, we have square, we have a line, we have fill, we have, this new selection. So here are the key differences between not bitmap. I was about to say vector and bitmap. So the difference between vector and bitmap is that vector is like SVG sprites, I think. Is that what it is? Those are like specific sprites, whereas bitmap is like images and stuff. Because if I export that, it is now exported as an image. I'm not sure if you guys can see it up there, but it is produced as an image. Now if I go and convert it to vector and then I export it, it is now an SVG. And so an SVG is just a sprite file. So SVGs contain different different things that you can edit. You can move different things around, you can do all that. But with bitmap, it is just, once it's there, unless you are willing to erase it or somehow select and move a specific thing. Because I cannot click on a certain square, because it is now part of one whole image, whereas vector contains different images that you can move around and stuff. So unless I select the specific region which I'm trying to move, it's all stuck there. And now if you do import an image, so I'm going to import that image again. Okay, actually no, this is a thumbnail to one of my other videos. But if I were to now try to erase this, I can't because we are in vector. But now if I go to bitmap, I can erase it because now it is one image and not just a big sprite costume. So I can do all that. So yes, that is the key difference. I don't recommend using texts in bitmap, especially because it's real tricky to mess with, and you can't do much outlining with it. And I will tell you this, the more you move things around and change them in bitmap, the lower the quality gets every time. Like as you can see, I'm moving my text around, and every time it just converts and compresses into a smaller quality. And so bitmap is definitely something for like if you're trying to crunch things together and save some space and kind of keep up the performance. Whereas for higher performance type things, I would use an SVG or vector. So that's it with the costumes in the sprite editing. Of course, here you can zoom in, equalize the size, and then zoom out. These are special settings that I have with my add-on. Same with this pause button. So yes. Okay, so now we have switch to costume, next costume. So what this does is this will switch to any costume you would like. And so as you can see, I can change it to whichever costume I want. So maybe for running, we'll have it switch to this, and then we'll have it switch to this. So now it looks like our cat is running. So yes, and then we have this random costume 3, which I was trying to prove a point with, but it's definitely not really needed. Now we have our next costume block, and what this will do is it will only switch to the next costume on your list. So look, our costume is currently on costume 1. Now if I click next costume, it's going to go to that other cat because it is the next costume in the list. So we have 1, 2, and 3, and it will go accordingly to the number value. So that's our next costume. And now we have backdrop. So I can see how people might confuse backdrops and costumes. So you can control and do code inside of this backdrop thing just by clicking it over here. This is more for like, I don't know, like when flag is clicked, switch the backdrop. So what switching a backdrop does, backdrops are kind of like scenes. So like maybe we have a main menu here. Oh, why is it not letting me type? So we have a main menu here, and then now we have our game here. So I don't know. Press to start. We'll go here, and then wow, you're playing. We'll go here. So, you know, we would do when flag is clicked. Now we would switch the costume to main menu because the main menu should show up right when we start, right? So, boom, here we are. And then now, once we start playing, it will now switch to game. Wow, we're playing. So yeah. So that's what switch to backdrop will do. Let's see here. So you can switch it to whatever scene/backdrop you want. You can go next backdrop, so it's similar to this. It'll go to the next backdrop in the listing. So you can change it from there. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this real quick. Okay, we have to have at least one. So I'm gonna go ahead and say goodbye with this here. Alright, let's see. Make sure that you click on your sprite again, because there's a limited amount of functions in our backdrops. Like we can't do any of that stuff. That's because it's not a sprite. It is, I mean, I guess it kind of is. They just limit it because it's mostly the scene altogether. So after backdrops, we have change size by and set size to. So what this will do, we have our size down here. You can change this manually here. Like we did that in that platformer tutorial that I did, that scrolling one. We were able to change the size, which will help us work with it better. So if you change size by 10, you start at the size 100, which 100 is default. So normal size. So if I were to set this to 1, or hope, and the minimum here is 5, you can't see it at all. So 100. So if you change size by 10, it will gradually get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now if I were to change it by 1 and super fast, it would be much smoother, but for now, here. And now set size to. Some people are a little bit confused every now and then because it's by percentage. 100% is its default size. So default size is whatever the size is in here, which there's not like a set size, but it will just be kind of scale it out onto here. So 100% of the actual costume size. And now if we were to do 200, what that would be is the default size doubled, and then 50 would now be half of it. So that's why that percentage is there. So we now know how to change the size of our thing, or our sprite. Okay. We have a couple color effects to go with here. We now have change color effect by 25, and here's a lot of new effects, and this might be just a little bit overwhelming if you don't know what all of it is. So color effect will change this color effect. If you go back into your costume, you can see that it is the same color, because we are not changing the costume. We are creating a graphic which will go over the costume, and we are changing the color of that graphic to make it look like it's a different color than it really is. And so color effect will do that. Fisheye, here's what fisheye does. It basically, boom, fisheye effect. He has his mouth, like he has a big head right now. We have whirl, so it's kind of like I'd say a whirlpool, or like a swirly type thing. Woo, 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 as you can see. We have pixelate. So pixelate and mosaic are different, okay? Some people mistake the two for the thing. I'm going to clear the graphics real quick. So pixelate, what this will do is literally turn it into pixels. So it's going to keep compressing it by different pixel amounts. So by 25. So 25 is the default. And so Mosaic, some people mix them up. The difference here is that it is not pixelating it, but it is duplicating it to look pixelated. So here, it duplicated it, so we now have a bunch of tinier cats. And then we do it again, we have a bunch more tinier cats, and then more and more and more and more and more, until it's like, okay, what is happening? Eventually, if you do it, you can see some pretty wacky things in there. Sometimes I just use my imagination to kind of see what I got in there. So let's see what I can do real quick. So 200. Let's see if I can set the size to 250 real quick. Alright, so if you keep doing it, you'll eventually start to see different things in there. Let's see if I clear graphic effects. Here we go. Like, ta-da! Alright. It just depends on what your eyes see. Like, I see this different little design there, and so it's all just playing with your head a bit. So yeah, after that we have brightness, and what this will do is brighten it. So whatever color this is, it's going to brighten it up. So I would think of this as like, okay, you have a light, and right now your light is off and it's not shining on something, so it looks like this. And now once you turn the light on, if you keep turning it brighter and brighter and brighter, eventually it's just going to look super bright and lighter colored. So that's what this brightness effect does. And of course it still will not change the costume at all. Next we have ghost effect. I use this a lot, actually, believe it or not. What this will do is change the transparency or the clearness or see-through. So the higher the ghost effect, the more transparent it becomes. Now this is changing it, by the way, so you're slowly increasing the value or decreasing it. So that's where we now get into set. So now you can set it to a specific color. 100 is like the final, the full thing, and then anything above is extra, like 100. So since it all the graphic effects start as 0, so they're not visible, but once you increase the values, they become more and more visible, like the size. So I could set ghost effect to 100 and it's not going to show anything right now, because that whole thing is now showing. So that's the difference between change and set in the graphic effects. And you might have noticed that I'm going over here and clicking this thing, clear graphic effects. And what this will do is change all of these values to 0. So you'll be right back to your normal sprite. So now we have show and hide. So what this will do is it will temporarily show or hide your sprite. And you can also do that here. You can click it here. The only difference is if you want to do this in code for a specific thing. Like, what I like to do is, like, whenever the main menu is on, I would hide this sprite, and then once we get into the game, I would show it. And so you can do that here. Certain things like detecting, like if you're touching the sprite, will not work if you are hidden, which is why I will often use the set ghost effect to 100. That way it looks like it's not visible, but really everything and all the code is still going on inside of our sprite. Next we have go to and front layer, back layer. And so I also use this a lot, because here, if I'm going to show you a test, if I create a sprite and like, okay, this is the ground right here. Okay, so this is our ground, and this is our cat that's on the floor. So our cat right now is somehow behind it. Like, how can the cat be behind or under it? So that's where the layers come in. So you can say go to front layer, and it will now be in front of everything else. So it's now in front of every other thing. And so it's not sending this thing back a layer, but only it's sending this up a layer. And you can do the same opposite by doing go to back layer. So now we got that. And now we have go forward and go backward one layer. And so like this, it's either increasing or decreasing the layer that our sprite is on. But this one is increasing it by value. So maybe you want to put this on a certain layer, and you want to put this on a certain layer, but you don't want it to be front and back because certain other things also need to go on that same layer. So you can go forward one layer, and yeah. So now we got that. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this floor because it looks slightly ugly right now. So now we have costume number, backdrop number, and size. So in the last tutorial, we were up here. We ended right here. We had X position, Y position, and direction. So what these were variables that contain the value of the X position, Y position, and direction. So same goes here. These are both all variables that contain the costume number, the backdrop number, and the size. Except for here you can change it to contain the costume name, which it will then print what your costume's name is. So sometimes I like to do, if backdrop number is 1, which would be my main menu, then I would hide the cat. So that's a good thing. It's a good use for these. And then size, of course, can control the size. So like maybe you want a falling animation, and so you're changing the size to get smaller, and then you want to detect if the size is like 0, and then you'll reset the size. So yeah. So that is it for our looks. This was slightly shorter, I think. But yeah. Don't head out yet, because now we are going to continue on creating our game. So we are slowly going to get further in. So maybe we'd say let's set it to costume 1. So now it's going to set it to costume 1 and go to a random position. Maybe let's say welcome to the game. Let's see, welcome to the game. There we go, and I'm gonna say for 3 seconds, welcome to the game. It gives them enough time to see the text and look over it again if they need to. Let's see here, set. What if we did set pixelate effect to 25, and then after that we'll say, wait, why am I so blurry? Turn up your quality. There we go. And I'm gonna do this for 5 seconds because the text is long. So here's what's gonna happen. Welcome to the game. Why am I so blurry? Turn up the quality. Now, we do have a problem here. When we start again... Oh, wait, what? I'm very confused right now. Okay, so I was thinking it's not going to clear the graphic effects, but I guess it automatically does. But just in case, I'm going to put that here. So this is how you can make animations using motion and looks. You can, you know, do something like this. Maybe we'll go to random position, and then we will guide 1 second to... We'll guide 2 seconds to 0, 0. And we'll do this. And then we'll go over there, and then do that. So let's see. Welcome to the game. And now it'll go over here. Wait, why am I so blurry? Turn up the quality. So there we go. So here is our basic animation now. So yeah, you now have a pretty basic animation. And so this is getting into like animating and stuff like that. So if you found this tutorial helpful and you want to see some more by me, subscribing would be greatly appreciated, but you're not forced to, of course. So yeah, I will keep doing some more tutorials. Let me know in the comments some other things you'd like to see, or like different tutorials and stuff. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.